Hey there, I am Christy Ruffino, former broke single mom turned CEO of 2 six-figure businesses and best-selling author with 15 books. But it wasn't always like this. Not long ago, I was a hot mess. Yes, I did a lot of things right, but mostly I was throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what would stick. Fast forward past many failed attempts and a few incredible victories, I not only get to share what I've learned along the way, I get to bring together top influencers as they share their empowering stories, insider secrets, and valuable resources that can be used right now to step into your power. So, if you're an ambitious entrepreneur, or possibly one in the making, and you're looking to create a business and life that lights you up, well, then you're in the right place. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Mastery Unleashed podcast. I am Christy Ruffino, the host of the show, and the person that gets to introduce our next guest. If you are a new listener, I want to welcome you. I'm hoping you've been a loyal fan, and some of the conversations we're going to have today may ring a bell for you because we talk about some of the past guests that I've had on the show. And so let's get in and dive into who I'm going to have on today, because I'm sure the suspense is just killing you. My guest today is Jeff West. And not only is he a well-known author, but he is an industry leader in coaching for leaders and sales professionals, and heck, anybody in business that really recognizes the importance of communication, influence, and making sure that when we communicate with others, we're doing it in a way that is going to get results. I met Jeff about 1.5 years ago in a community. We have a mutual friend, the one and only my friend, Bob Burg, and he has really impressed me. Jeff has really impressed me how he has shown up in the community. He is a leader in that community. He's always willing to help out. Every time I have a podcast that airs, he is one of the first people to share it with his network. He's always given me a ton of support. He really, really cares about how he works with his clients, how the results he gets for them, and just building relationships. So we all know that relationships are important today because we don't want to be a transactional society. We want to be a relational society. And Jeff is the person that can help you with that. So let's get on with the show so you can get to meet Jeff, learn from him, and hang around to the end to get his free gift. We'll see you then. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to today's show. This is Christy and Jeff West, and I'm really excited to dive into this conversation today. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you so much. I am honored to be on your show. I listen to it a lot, so I'm very honored to be here. Thank you.
Oh, so I know a little bit about you from a community that we've been in, and I know in the last year or so, maybe not that long, you can maybe clarify the time frame that you've gotten into this whole publishing world, and we're going to talk about it at the end. So hang tight, don't go away. You want to hear this whole show, because what Jeff has accomplished in the publishing arena with a couple books is just incredible. And my brain is like, I want to talk about that the whole time. However, you've built a really long and successful career, and that's what we're going to talk about first. So let's
Sounds
dive
great.
into that.
All right. Well, I actually, I've been in sales and sales leadership, sales management. I did that for 30 something years before I retired and began writing and speaking and kind of branching out. I have 2 degrees to teach. One is a master's degree in music composition, and the other is a bachelor's in music education.
Oh,
But I found
wow.
out, I found out very
Yeah.
quickly that my wife and my children, they picked up these bad habits. They like to eat and live indoors, so I needed to make more money.
They're silly, silly little necessities, right?
Yeah, where did that come from? You know, but I ended up in sales. I often said by accident, but the truth is, I look back, I think it was divine providence. And I worked in sales with a musical instrument company for a few years, and then I got into the industrial uniform arena. But my final sales career was actually in the insurance industry with a company called Aflac. Most people know the brand.
I want to
And
just go, wah, wah, when you say
I,
Aflac.
I used to walk into accounts or prospects when I would be trying to land new accounts. I would take one of those Aflac ducks and I'd squeeze it and they'd go, Aflac. But and that's where I spent the majority of my time in leadership. I had 20 years in field sales leadership with Aflac, and still being self-employed and not being an actual employee. I was a district manager or district coordinator for 8 years, a regional for 2. And then I was one of the state sales coordinators in Texas for the last 10 years before I retired. And in most states, the state sales coordinator term made so much sense because there was one in the state, but Texas was kind of big. So
Yeah, kind of.
yeah, kind of. I think we had eight state sales
Oh,
coordinators, and we actually did more sales volume in the state of Texas in 1 year than what Aflac did as a company the year I started. So it was a very lucrative and a very good career, but that's where I really began to train people and to coach leaders. And then when I retired from that in January of 2014 and stepped out and began my writing career and doing coaching as a professional basis, it was a natural fit. And so now what I primarily do, my sweet spot is writing, and that's my happy time. I write sales fables. I can write and have written This Is How You Do It book. But sales fables are my favorite. We'll talk more about that later.
yeah.
But I still do some sales coaching of sales leaders. I don't do a lot of coaching for individuals anymore, but it's sales leadership teams, people who are in charge of leading a volunteer army and feel like they're herding cats. That's the kind of people that I can normally help pretty well, because the entire branding around what I do, refer to it as fusion points, engage the science of persistence. And what I teach people to do is to work with the science that goes on in the brain when decisions are being made, and how to make that flow into a way that they retain their salespeople instead of having such a high turnover rate. It also works well with attracting and retaining their clients as well.
Hmm. That makes a lot of sense. And it's interesting because you started out where you didn't start out one day waking up and thinking, okay, this is my path. It seems like it's just evolved, right? It's like organically evolved to now allow you to take all of that experience and add your writing, right? The creative side of who you are. I mean, of course, you can't add the music to it yet. I'm sure maybe you can figure something out with that, but take the writing, the creative writing, and teach people all of this wisdom through these fables, right? These stories.
Right. Yeah. The 2 fables that I published, the first one was right after I retired from Aflac. It's called The Unexpected Tour Guide. And Bob, our mutual friend, Bob Burg, obviously, who's been on a couple of your episodes, including number 100, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. And number 1.
And number 1, that's right. He's such a good guy. I've never seen anybody that lives the message he espouses better in my life.
Absolutely.
He's awesome.
Absolutely.
But I had sent him an advanced copy of The Unexpected Tour Guide, looking for maybe a little validation, I guess, on my part, because I think so much of him anyway. And his encouragement and comments and his help to me after that was just pretty incredible. So, but yeah, and then I had a new one that just came out that said The Lady with the Blue Hair, I co-authored with Lisa Wilber. So it's just been a good thing. But what happened is, in the sales coaching, it helps me be able to express concepts in a way that people will retain it.
Yeah.
But also, in my sales career, I literally have been at every level you could possibly imagine anyone being at in a sales career, including totally falling on my rear end and just failing. When I started with Aflac, I had just moved my family into a little mobile home, and the floor literally was falling out of parts,
Oh
and
boy.
because we were going under. And within 2 years, I'd gotten us out of that situation, and then went on to have a very lucrative career that's let me retire at 54 years old. So
Ah, good for you. Good for
anything that
you.
anybody's been through, I can probably relate.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, and our mess, becomes our big message and our big why. Like we want to help people even more passionately when we've been through something that has really kind of shaken our world, and we want to now use that wisdom and that fuel to
Right.
help other people. So it's pretty powerful.
Absolutely. It's
All
what
right.
keeps me in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's what keeps you relatable, and your clients know you understand what they're going through, right? You've been there. You've got through it, and now you're helping them
Right.
get to where they want to go. So let's start. I mean, I've got so many like little notes here and all these different points I want to talk about. Let's start first with fusion points, because if we do have, like, maybe you can clarify, but from my perspective is if we have somebody that's in the sales field, either more specifically that has a sales team, that would be the ideal group of people that this fusion points philosophy or methodology would help, or would it be a broader group of people?
It's a little bit broader. I even have an
Okay.
online sales course where I use that branding in the training itself, all the way from a prospecting position through a successful career and in leadership. But basically, the idea behind fusion points, it's branded Fusion Points Engage the Science of Persistence.
Mhm.
And it was an outgrowth of when I retired from Aflac. One of the things that I wanted to know for years, and most sales leaders that I knew also wanted to know, was the answer to a very odd question. It seemed like at times we could take two people who seemed on paper to both be very great candidates to go out and be very successful in sales. They look good. I always say they look good, they smell good, they were smart, and that they have similar resumes. But then when you put them out in the field of sales, sometimes it seems one of them makes it and one of them doesn't. And that puzzled me. So I started to research how people make decisions. And I came across the works of Dr. Antonio Damasio, and I won't go into all of that now because it gets a little technical. But basically, what it amounts to is there's an actual science, a neurological process that happens in our brain with each and every decision that we make. And if we learn to work within that science, especially in a sales career, but it works even in just building your own business regardless of the career. If you
Right.
work within that science, you can actually influence how some very important decisions get made. You can influence how a prospect makes the decision to whether they will listen to you or just tell you thanks, but no thanks. You can actually help influence how that prospect then decides to become your customer and your eventual walking ambassador, referring you to people all around them. We can influence how, as a sales leader, we can influence how our salespeople decide to stay with their career, to stay with us and keep pursuing that, even though at times sales is a little tough. But most importantly, if we understand the science, we can actually influence how we as individuals make the decision to persist and move forward in what we're doing in our chosen endeavor, whether it's sales or whether it's starting a new business or a solopreneur. And we can work within that science, and we will actually have a very good influence on that.
Hmm. So, initially I was thinking sales teams or sales professionals, because it is about communicating your value and influencing the right people to make the decision of you being able to help them, right? If of course what you have can help them. However, it sounds to me like you just explained that it could go to anybody in leadership, including people that don't recognize they're in leadership, aka moms, right? Trying to get your kids to do certain
Right.
things, or basically everybody that is walking around. If you want to influence people in a good way. We don't want to use these powers in a bad way, but to be able to use these powers in a good way to help other people and influence them to make changes or decisions, then these skills or these teaching points that you share is something that could help them.
Oh, absolutely. Because the process that goes on in the brain basically is every single decision that we make, without exception, is always a combination of logic and emotion. And a lot of people really don't notice that, or they don't think about that. They think, well, I can make logical decisions. I can think this out and make a very logical decision. But what the actual research shows on the neurology of the brain is if the two parts of the brain aren't communicating, the decision doesn't get made.
Right.
And so then it's about, okay, how do we combine the emotion with the logic? If it's a positive emotional experience combining with logic, the natural tendency we all have is we want to move to that next step. We like that. We want to repeat it and keep going there. If it's a negative emotional response that we're having, it creates a physiological feeling inside of us. It's called a somatic marker, but it makes us not want to do that again. And so in the process of coaching salespeople, I'll coach them when you're dealing with prospecting, you want to create a positive emotional response with the person you're going to prospect even before you ask for the first meeting. Because there's ways to do that with send pre-touches. There's all kinds of ways you can do that will make that happen. So that later when you ask for the appointment and you're going in to make your presentation, they've already got several positive emotional experiences with you, and it won't make the sale happen for you, but at least you're starting off ahead in the game. And the same thing works in leadership. As a sales leader, I retired from Aflac years ago, but I know the fellow who took my position when I left, and he's a great guy. And he said, you've been gone. We played golf last year, so this was at the 8-year point. He said, you've been gone 8 years, and your people still love you and still talk about you. And that is not something that was an intentional thing. It's something that I did naturally, but then I wanted to know how to duplicate that. And the duplication comes in fusion points. It's creating those positive emotional responses, combining it with logic, and helping everybody go forward from it.
Love that. Love that. All right. So let's take a quick break and we'll come back and we'll dive into some more of this. And I want to talk about your book, if that's okay, or a couple of them.
That sounds wonderful. I like that idea.
Awesome. All right. Hang tight, everybody. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody. This is Christy and Jeff West, and we just had a really great conversation about Jeff's story, how he kind of got into this specific area, about the neuroscience of people making decisions, and his methodology of fusion points. If there's somebody listening right now, Jeff, who wants to maybe apply some of what you know in their life. Now, I know you've got some free gifts that you're going to share at the end. Right. So you've got some great resources that you can help with their journey and their goals. But if somebody's just listening right now, like what could they start applying to their situation to help them?
Probably the first one that I would recommend is the biggest personal fusion point that they can have with what they're trying to accomplish comes when they find that thing inside them that will make them have such an emotional response that they can't quit. Because a lot of people in sales, or a lot of people who are new entrepreneurs or they're solopreneurs, they have something to give. They have something that makes sense, but it's tough to get themselves to do the work every day they should do. It happens to salespeople all the time. It comes across with call reluctance. But the first thing that they need to do is there's the strongest fusion point they will have themselves is when they find their most positive emotional center, and they combine that with the logic of what they're trying to do. For me, that was finding my why. You'll hear a lot of people talk about finding their why, and I think sometimes it can get a little bit overused. But when you find that thing inside you that will push you and will not let you give up, you combine that with your logic and you'll just keep moving forward. And for me, it was my children. When I started with Aflac, and we were in pretty bad financial straits at the time. I had been with a company that got bought out, and that buyout didn't work out really well for me. And quite frankly, I blamed everybody in the world except the man who shaves my face. Well, I don't shave the whole face anymore, but anyway. But I was in a tough spot, and even starting with Aflac, I was struggling to get going in the beginning because you're without a net. You have to build it yourself. And I remember the day that changed for me. When we moved into the mobile home, we had moved out of a nice middle-class neighborhood that my kids were, at the time, they were 9 and 5, if I remember right. And they had a cul-de-sac. They would ride their bikes in the cul-de-sac and all that. Yeah. But when we moved, a lot of the landlord said you can leave a lot of things in the garage until you get a storage facility for it. If the place sells, we'll have the realtor let you know. And the realtor sold the house and was not able to let us know for whatever reason. So everything in the garage was given away.
Oh,
no. And most of it was just stuff. But there were a couple of things in there that were bigger than stuff.
Yeah, like memory things, right?
Well, in this particular case, my daughter's bicycles were in there.
Oh.
And they were given away. And I will never forget the day that I had to tell them that. And it was, I don't remember the month, but it was raining. It was a little chilly in North Texas. And I remember telling them that, they'd been given away, and then they did what kids do. They said, well, can we go get another one? And I said, not right now, we can't.
Yeah.
And then children being children, well, that was emotional for them. And I stayed there for a couple of minutes, and then I just went out on the front porch of the mobile home, and I stood there in the rain. My children have never been spoiled, and I like to think I'm a man's man and can handle myself, but I stayed out there for probably 45 minutes and wouldn't go back in because they had stopped crying, but I hadn't. And I felt frustrated. I felt like a failure. But that day I drew a line in the sand for me. And it was, I got to get a better life for my kids. I can't let this go any differently. And that was the point that it changed, because that point, I always loved my kids, but at that point I felt like I was letting them down, and that had to change.
Right.
And so that'd be really sad if that's where the story ended, but it wasn't. Within about 6 months, I got my head, what's the right way to say it? I got my head out of the wrong place and into the game.
Yes.
And I remember one of my favorite days of my whole life was about 6 months after that. And the girls came home from school, and I said, hey, get in the car. We're going to Walmart. And my oldest said, Dad, I can't. I've got homework. I said, I don't care what you have. We're going to Walmart. And I took them to Walmart, and I start walking them up and down the aisles at Walmart. And I'm walking fast, and I don't walk fast, Christy. If you ever see Jeff West walking fast, something may be on fire.
Okay, got it.
I stroll. It's just what I do. I get on stage, I'll stroll around on stage. But that day I was moving pretty quickly, and we were having a good time. And we get back there in the toy section, and we get there where the bicycles were hanging up on the rack. And I went, whoa, look at that. I said, how did they get those bicycles up there? And I said, Lindsay, look, you like yellow. See the yellow one up there? And I said, Whitney, there's a purple one. You love purple. And my favorite day of my life was when I got down on my professional life. It's when I got down on my knees in the middle of Walmart. I didn't care who saw me. I gave both those girls a hug and a kiss. I said, guess what? And they said, what, Daddy? And I said, you can have anything in the store you want today. You get your bicycles, helmets, knee pads, whatever.
Yeah.
And I probably didn't spend $600 that day, Christy, but it means more to me than the millions I've made after that. I'm just going to say.
Oh my gosh, that is a great story.
So that emotional stronghold for me, every time I would make a sales call, I had a picture of my girls. This is telling you how old I am, in my day timer.
Got it.
I would go in. It didn't matter if the sales call went well or went poorly. I learned that I could never let them down. So that was my strongest fusion point for me.
Okay, so I want to clarify this a little bit, because you said it's combining logic with a positive emotional center. However, what if somebody hasn't gotten to the positive point of their story yet? Maybe they're in the trailer park, kids, bike, gone stage. Like, how can they get to the point where now they're tapping into their why and doing it in a way that's going to sustain them?
It's probably for most people going to be something similar to what happened with me. I tapped into that why before I got out of the situation. I was still in a bad financial way when that happened, but my why became those girls and getting them out of that situation.
Yes.
And so it's probably going to be something like that. It's going to be either family related, or it may not be family related. Maybe that's a charity or a worthy cause that someone really wants to be able to support, but they don't have the funds to do it now. So they use that to drive themselves. It just has to be something, and it doesn't matter what stage of their career they're in. It's just got to touch their heart. It's got to pull them forward in ways that something else can't.
Right. And I also want to encourage people who are in a difficult part of their life. They're in the middle of their mess, and the mess tends to be lasting longer than they want. Sometimes we need to get help to get out of that mess.
Absolutely.
We can't always fight our way out of something, because we got in that situation because that's how we got in that situation. We may not have the skills to get out of it, but it's okay to ask for help. I don't know, what you did to get on the other side, but I'm sure it was a combined effort with other people, and you learned things. And, everybody that I've talked to and all of the stories that I've heard from all of my clients, they didn't just make a decision and magic happened. They made a decision and took actions for that change to come together.
Absolutely. That is huge.
Yeah.
In my case, I had some mentors that I could get some coaching from, and I think failing to invest in yourself in coaching or whatever is a huge mistake. And there are so many free resources out there. As you get where you can, a paid resource is good too, but it's a combination. In my case, I literally dove in to everything I could find on the psychology of sales. I remember reading a lot of Brian Tracy back then. I would listen to Bob's tapes, and I would the book Endless Referrals actually changed my life. There's just so many things like that. But yes, and if someone needs to talk to someone, maybe on more of a professional level, that's fine too. You have to do whatever it takes for you to be able to grow your family, grow your career. And there's just some great help out there, both professionally and personally. So just do whatever it takes for that. Don't be shy.
Yeah, absolutely. Use that mess to become a strong message and a motivator for you to accomplish great things, honestly, because if life was cushy all of the time, we'd be like sitting on the couch eating, bonbons and watching TV. But, it takes the hard work. The people that are out there making an impact in the lives of others are the ones that are out there doing the hard work. And
Right.
I love that.
We're all creating our own story as we go along. And the story of those that never had to overcome anything that's not going to help someone else overcome what they're dealing with. So just realize one of my favorite quotes is by Kierkegaard, and it said, I'm paraphrasing, but it's life is lived forward, but only understood backwards.
Yes.
And as I looked through the challenges that I was going through at the time, I thought this is the most terrible thing in the world that could possibly happen to me. And I think God didn't need to humble me this much. I needed it probably, but not that much,
Yeah.
But as I look back now, everything that happened took me to the next direction, the next step. And it also, even to this point, 20 something years later, it's part of why I'm able to do things now that mean so much to me, that help other people, that I would not have had the platform or the credibility to do if I hadn't
and
done
the wisdom.
Right.
And the wisdom.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So let's get into that. I know we're running out of time, but I definitely want to focus on the books. I know our mutual friend is Bob Burg, and he has a great parable, The Go-Giver. And it is, to me, I loved Endless Referrals, but to me, The Go-Giver has been a foundational piece of my career and my community's career, because he teaches very tangible, useful strategies through the vehicle of a story.
Right.
And I honestly have not read is it the Unexpected Tour Guide? I didn't even know you had another one because I've only known you about a year and a half. And I know the lady with the blue hair book because I had the honor of pre-reading it before it went to final publication. And it's an amazing book. And so tell me a little bit about your writing journey, your parable teaching, because I think that, and I'm going to stop talking in a moment, but I think I know so many people have this desire to write a book and to teach others and to share their wisdom, and having it done in a short story like that is so powerful.
Well, it's the business fable, the sales parables are my favorite genre to read, and it's my favorite to write. It's just like you said with Bob and John David Mann when they did the Go-Giver.
Yeah.
You're touching someone's emotions. It is actually a visual and perfect illustration of a fusion point, because what you're doing is you're touching someone emotionally with a story that then pulls that story into a point, and they remember the point. It's like with what you're teaching with the things you do. It's you have to get that story involved. And for me, the first one was The Unexpected Tour Guide, and it is a fable about a young salesman who's really struggling. He's a good guy, he's hardworking, but he's just really not getting it. And he meets a homeless man in Houston, and the relationship that happens between the two of those men changes his life. And it's our friend Bob actually makes a cameo appearance. I wrote him into the story a little bit.
Oh wow!
But it's won some awards. It's done some things. It's done all right. Let's leave it at that. And then the newest one said The Lady with the Blue Hair: 7 Rules for Success in Direct Sales, wrapped in a wonderful parable for life. This one is co-authored with Lisa Wilber, who's like Avon's 5th highest earning person in history. Just huge, has a huge team. And she and I partnered kind of like what Bob and John did on The Go-Giver. And I said, give me some of the lessons you teach your people, and we'll turn that into a parable. And so that's what we did. And the story in it, it's about a mom who's unexpectedly single and has to go in a new direction. And she meets a character on a beach in Hawaii, the lady with the blue hair. Yeah. And that mentorship develops, and the story I get so many great compliments about the story. My goal when I write a parable is to have the story be so touching and so great that even if it didn't teach a thing, people would still like the book. And I feel like both of them kind of rise to that level. But it's just been a joy to do that, because it's my happy place. What can I tell you? I love to do that. Yeah. And it's just if I can touch somebody emotionally and we throw in a lesson, the chances of them retaining that lesson and putting it to use in their life goes up. I remember reading my first parable was an Og Mandino book, and it was called The Greatest Salesman in the World. The Greatest
Salesman. Yeah, that's a great one. Classic.
I was hooked from that point forward. Everything John David Mann writes, I will read. I love every bit of it, and so it's a happy spot for me. And as we get toward whatever time this is the right time, I've got a couple of things to tell about something that just happened on the Unexpected Tour Guide. So.
Okay, yes, let's talk about that. I know you have some free gifts. Yeah. I also know that you want to connect with Jeff because he's got a couple big projects on the horizon that are super exciting. But let's talk about what you just mentioned about recent developments.
Okay. The Unexpected Tour Guide actually came out in paperback back in 2014. It has just been released on Audible, and I do the narration on it. And if you go to Audible, if you are a new Audible subscriber, well, I'll give Christy I don't think I've done it yet, but I'll give you the link if someone wants to do that. I think you get the book for free if you're a new subscriber, but even if you're an existing subscriber, you just go get it. I have actually put a little thing in the book itself that you'll hear that if you get that book, I'm going to give you a free course on my website. There's a course I've been charging $97 for years. And it's called How to Build a Golden Rule Referral Network.
Oh, I love that.
And, it's anyone who is in any type of sales, especially if you're going out prospecting face-to-face, it's huge, but it works in every industry. but you'll get that course for free, and it's $97. And what it is I give you a way to get the coupon code that waives the fee in the book. So it's a way somebody get a really good course and for something probably won't even cost you anything on Audible. So, and then we have a coaching bundle that I have for people. The link will be in the show notes, but it's a combination of the first 3 chapters of the Unexpected Tour Guide in print form. It's my weekly coaching series. I have a long series of weekly coaching emails and sales and leadership, things of that nature. And I think I have a couple of PDFs in there as well, but I call it my ultimate free coaching package, but the link will be in the show notes.
Love it. I love it. I appreciate you sharing this. So that's a lot of things in that bundle that will really help people. So I appreciate you sharing that.
I'm glad to do it. Honored to help.
Oh my gosh. So I have a ton of notes. I loved this time with you. I know our audience, I'm sure they found a ton of value and definitely entertained, right? Because stories are so important in the whole learning process, and you have some great stories.
It is. If you can find the right story in your business process, whether it's sales or whether it's anything, that when you can get the right story coming through with the logic of what your proposition is, what you're trying to accomplish, the success rate jumps like crazy.
Right.
No, an honor to be on your show. I muddled that. It's been an honor to be on your show today. I'm a writer. Okay. I can make up new words.
I muddle things all of the time. It's all good, right?
Right.
I keep telling my guests, because, a lot of them, the first thing they say is, do you edit this? And we're like, well, we kind of do, but typically don't worry if you mess up, because one of these days we're going to have a blooper show and you'll be one of the stars. And they're like, okay, that works.
When we're off air, I will tell you my worst blooper ever someday, but not on air.
Oh, no, I want to hear it. Oh,
no.
Oh. You opened that door. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, it's my honor to be here, Christy. I've been listening to your show for a while, and so it's a true honor to be here.
Oh, well, thank you. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Whatever notes you took that you learned from Jeff, please share it with somebody else, because studies show that if we teach what we learn, we retain that information. Plus, you're going to be helping them. So any wisdom, any little golden nuggets of brilliance that Jeff shared, please pass it on to somebody you know. And of course, if you like our podcast, please give us some support on whatever platform you listen. If you haven't given us a review yet, that's really one of the ways that you can give us the most support, because every time I reach out to a guest, I know they check our reviews, and we want to make sure we can continue to bring on amazing guests like Jeff. So you can learn, I can learn. I mean, selfishly, for me, one of the best things about my show is being able to connect with amazing people like Jeff. So thank you, Jeff. And thanks everybody for listening. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to the Mastery Unleashed podcast, where we believe that everyone can have the business and life of their dreams by turning their mess into their greatest message and following their purpose to help the people who need their newfound wisdom and resources. To learn more, visit masteryunleashedpodcast.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review to this show.